I've been writing some fun caveman short stories, humor, of course. They're all based on a full-length book that I wrote called Bonkin' Heads, a caveman and woman story. It's kind of like if you saw the movie The Croods, it's kind of like The Croods for adults. And actually, the strange thing there is I wrote Bonkin' Heads in 2011, and The Croods came out about 2 years later. And there are some scary parallels between the books. I mean, the characters are the same, the story is the same. Maybe looking into copyright type things. But anyway, so I wrote about cavemen, and in one of the short stories that I'm writing now, I have them. They invent the very first wheelchair, because it got me wondering. What would have been like if you're a caveman and you were paralyzed in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they're getting run over by mammoths and chased by creatures, falling off of rocks and doing everything. I'm sure there are a lot of injuries. So what did the cavemen do? Do they take care of the people that got hurt, or did they leave them for predators? What happened to them? It'd be like if a predator was hurt, if a lion was hurt, the other pride and the other lions in the pride are not going to take care of that lion. They're just going to let him go, and what are they going to maybe even eat him? They might even do that on that, or just leave it to die. If a non-predator was disabled, they're definitely food for something else. So an antelope is not going to be cared for by other antelopes. Definitely not going to happen. But humans, what happened? Were they left to starve, or eaten, or were they taken care of in any way, shape, or form? And there have been some studies on it. They found archaeologist found in Vietnam that about 4,000 years ago, there's a skeleton that they found where they were able to determine that the person had Klippel-Feil syndrome, which fuses the bones together, and definitely would have made a paraplegic. And this person obviously lived for a while with this syndrome. So had to have been taken care of in some way, shape, or form. So the other humans had to be taking care of another human that had this happen to him. There's a Neanderthal that they found from 40,000 years ago that was missing an arm and was partially blind and deaf, and could not probably have survived on his own. So he had help also. They were able to determine that he lived into his 30s. I don't know how you study bones other than, for me, spare ribs or something. So as far as studying human bones, and our daughter is in archaeology, so maybe she could tell me some of these things here if I really wanted to learn it. But it goes back. I mean, even the ancient Greeks, they built ramps, so people could get up into areas for worship. From the medieval 1000s, they would think that when somebody was injured or had any kind of disability, whether mental or blind or deaf or whatever, some people thought that was a punishment for sin, and others thought that it was something that brought you closer to God, and that you suffer in your purgatory while you're on earth, and then you go to heaven actually earlier. So some people actually, so people take care of that. Then when you look later in years, people would beg. I mean, paraplegics. Some could work in some way, shape, or form. Some became priests and were able to work that way, but other ones couldn't, and they would just go and they would beg. Um, and monks and nuns would support them and take care of them. Then, like I said, in the thousands, they made their first hospitals for things like this. They had almsmen houses. They had places for lepers to be taken care of. They had the first mental institution in London around then called Bethlehem Hospital, and it was later changed to Bedlam, which I never understood when things, where the word Bedlam came from, until I learned that it's a mental institution. So when things go wild, yeah, it went Bedlam and kind of things. But so my point being is, there have been disabilities forever. Me having been paralyzed is something that is not unique. It's not nothing new. Just because it was done with a vaccine, because that's a new thing. Being paralyzed by a vaccine, but people paralyzed all the time by falling and getting hurt in warfare or anything else. So paraplegics, quadriplegics, they happen, and people took care of them. And it's not, we weren't like the Lions, were the pride of the, where they just couldn't do it. Although if they could, they probably would have, if they had thought of it. Um, then you have wheelchairs. When did those first start coming around? The first one was somewhere around in the 6th century. They built one for King Philip, who was not paralyzed, but he had gout, so he couldn't get around. I don't know if you know what gout was. That was where you ate such rich food. You weren't eating food that's good for you, and the rich food actually destroyed your body. So that's why it's called rich man's disease. So anyway, he had gout, so they made a furniture chair that had wheels on it, and the first self-propelled one was by a clockmaker named Stephen Favler in 1655. He was paralyzed when he was a child from an accident, and when he was 22 years old, he was a clockmaker. So he had a job. He was paraplegic, and he had a job, and he created the first self-propelled wheelchair, one which he would move it with his arms and things. And this is like 200 years before they even made a bicycle. And here's somebody that was in a wheelchair that not only could make clocks and do things very intricate with his hands, but he was able to create a device that enabled him to get around. So it's being paraplegic is not the end of life, and and I've got a Facebook page that I go on that has other paraplegics on it, and there are some people that are hurting. Um, they feel alone. They're sad. They feel like their life's done, and they feel helpless. I don't know what to do about it. And we're on that page. We're supporting each other, but they need to understand, and people need to understand that being a paraplegic is not the end of life. You can keep doing things. This I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary of the last time I ever walked. In 10 days from now, it'll be the 5 years, half a decade where I've been in a wheelchair. Have not taken a step since then, other than some robot steps that I took when I got into a robot thing to do it. But as far as walking on my own, coming up on the 5th year on that, and but I still work full time. I work full time. I'm great at my job. I really am. I save my company millions of dollars. I can document. I actually can document the amount of money I save my company every year, and I save them so much money, and I do that sitting in my wheelchair. And if it wasn't for COVID, if it wasn't for being able to work from home, um, I don't know what I'd be able to do. I wouldn't be able to work. COVID made it so that people understood working from home wasn't a horrible thing. So I can work from home and actually get more done from home because I don't get social visits with the people at work. I'm just sitting in my chair. I'm not going to walk around in the backyard. I'm not going to, just sit in my chair. I got nothing to do. So I get more work done as a paraplegic sitting in my wheelchair at my home office than I would if I was driving to work and doing things there. And other things I get done, to keep my mind active, writing, or doing even these videos, just to talk about it for a little bit. But I've had 2 books published in the 5 years that I've been paralyzed, and I've got 3 other ones in the work, which are one I'm trying to find actually it's a caveman story. It's a caveman book collection of short stories that I'm trying to find an agent for right now. And then I have a kidnapping novel, and then I have my memoir, 2 things that I'm doing a lot of editing on right now. So that's 5 books that I'm working on in a 5-year period. So I'm getting things done, in a wheelchair. So if you're in a wheelchair, it's yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I can't go out and I can't take my dog for a run. I can't do, I can't just go running out to my front yard to grab my mail or anything like that. I just, it does a lot of things negative, but it doesn't stop you from doing things that are positive. So I'm going to keep doing these things, and I'm going to keep writing books. I'm going to keep talking about this. I'm going to keep moving forward, and hopefully someday they'll find a way to cure this thing. I know they're making a lot of scientific improvements, and I hope to be able to take advantage of that and maybe be able to walk again. But even if I don't walk again, I'm still here, damn it. I'm still here. So anyway, if you want to check out my books and everything, go to my website, www.normcowie.com, COWIE.com. I especially urge you to read Bonkin' Heads and then watch the movie Croods and tell me if you think that they stole my ideas. I'd be curious to hear what you think about that. Anyway, thank you. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.